Welcome everybody, this is John Kaponi on the Gouventa channel on YouTube with Elena Panaritis in Athens. Elena has written a very insightful article, or she was interviewed by CNN in Greece about the way in which Greece has approached the COVID-19 crisis and what lessons Greece can take from the years of austerity and kind of communicate that to other member states. Explain to me a little bit more about the article, because the headline is slightly, let me just put it up on screen, it's slightly, it's clear. So I just wanted you to kind of explain to our viewers
what is the article, the title? I didn't understand your...
So it's the headline, "We must become the example of Europe." Yeah, because I've got it translated. And I wanted you to kind of explain to me a little bit more about how Greece can become the example to Europe. You know, what's, you know, in what sense? Is it the years of austerity?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for having me, John. It's a great pleasure to be again on your show. This was an interview that was done on the basis of a lot of conversations about the economic impacts, as well as the economic stimulus that has been given out to so many people in so many countries. So the questions were varied, but there was one question about Greece out of the 7 questions, and because it was written in the end in Greek, I'm assuming they felt that it was important to mention that as the title of the article. The questions were ranging from whether or not should we have or not have a Marshall Plan, something like a new Marshall Plan. What are the consequences of the coronavirus in terms of the economic reset and the crisis that is being expected to take place?
Okay, well, let me just stop you there.
And then also the situation about Greece, of course.
Okay, so let's begin there. So in terms of I mean, this has had, you know, the COVID-19 crisis without doubt is a game-changing event for the you know, the global economy. It's not just the European event. In terms of Greece has been hit hardest by, you know, the years of austerity and the big measures they had to take to kind of cut back public spending, to borrow, and, you know, look at the debt. So in terms of Greece now, right, how does a country that's already gone through many years of austerity, has cut back everything, and actually at the beginning of the year we saw the shoots of optimism, how does Greece now respond, and what you know, and what is it that the Europe can learn from Greece, from the experiences that they've had with these years of austerity?
Okay, so Greece is not, unfortunately or fortunately, the matter is that it's not an independent economy. It is one of the 28 other economies of the Eurozone, and its economic fate is completely interlinked with the Euro. It's interlinked with the European zone and the ECB, the policies that the European Union are following. So all of the countries in the world are pretty much shut. We have an expectation of minus 2.5% global recession. This is very much an astounding number. It's a combination of post-World War II and Great Depression. We're talking about unemployment rates in the United States that are going to reach up to 20%. And we haven't really seen the expectations in Europe. So in an environment like that, what is the possibility for Greece to reverse it? First of all, what are the expectations of the recession in Greece? People talk from -4 to 10% reduction for this year.
Yeah.
So the question, a lot of questions are such as, therefore, should we push for a new Marshall Plan? In other words, a plan where the stronger European Union countries, the ones that have a surplus, the ones that have been more aware of, they've been stronger throughout the years, be able to engage in a Corona fund that will be lending or giving grants, lending at low interest rates or giving grants to Greece and Italy and Spain and countries that have been, France, countries that have been completely affected by the epidemic.
Yeah.
So my answer to this is that right now, the tools we have, the monetary tools, the fiscal tools, any economic policy tools we have are too old. They're too old and they are very limited in their impact and their effectiveness. Don't forget, John, we already start before the pandemic crisis. We start with 0 interest rates and minus negative interest rates in Europe.
Exactly.
And this, of course, has also affected Greece. What has been, unfortunately, a reality. What has been, however, another reality and relatively good for Greece is the fact that Greece depends a lot on tourism. And we've had a new government that pushed a lot an extrovert type of presence, inviting more foreign direct investment. And we were expecting a boom coming from these two ends, from foreign direct investment, in other words, foreign savings coming into the country, and tourism booming. Because of the pandemic, this is becoming an issue. We are seeing a very big panic and a reduction to almost, I don't want to be pessimistic, but we may have 0 growth this year. Maybe have no inflow of tourists this year. And also the investment flow may actually hold back for very understandable reasons. And my point of view is, okay, we could wait for money, helicopter money to drop from the European Union. That hasn't yet happened, as it has happened in the UK or it has happened in the United States. So we have yet not seen that type of money supply growth from the European Union. And we can, knock our heads to the wall and try to talk about the fact that we have to be solidarity with each other and so on. We're wasting time. My suggestion is very simple. Concentrate in being very innovative. Greeks are entrepreneurial. Greeks are superbly innovative. They compete with Israel, as a matter of fact, in these elements. They should come up with innovative strategies of economic policy that will be related with the economic funding of this short-term financing that is taking place right now, that will allow to generate incentives for the existing economic activity not to die. Of course, you can imagine this is not a conversation I can completely unfold in 20 seconds, but it can start with specialized bonds. It can start with perpetual bonds. It can start with distinct type of financial tools that could be introduced from the country. And there is such an ability to do so. I mean, we do have that freedom to do so. So once we have that freedom to do so, then we can present ourselves as the country that has not only managed to hold back on the COVID-19 number of negative effects, in other words, number of deaths, but also be the country that has managed to promote, allow, generate incentives with innovative financial tools. And there are several of those we could start working on. It's not easy. You don't take them off the shelf. You have to work on them.
Shall we just listen to what the Prime Minister of Greece, Kyriakos Mitsotakis, said to CNN yesterday? Let's just have a quick listen to just a quick, so we can just respond to what he said, because I think his his comments were quite.
The economy is heavily dependent on tourism, 20% or more dependent on tourism. So opening up means letting in tourists.
Not at the first stage. We are not more dependent than, say, Portugal, or even to a certain extent Spain. All southern countries are heavily dependent on tourism. Now, the real question is, will we be able to have tourists come in the later parts of the summer? Only if we agree to very specific protocols, hopefully at the European level. Let's assume people get a test before they fly out, and then we carefully monitor them, either an antibody test or a PCR test. And then, of course, the tourism experience this summer may be slightly different from what you've had in previous years, with more social distancing, maybe no bars may be open, or no tight crowds, but you can still get a fantastic experience in Greece, provided the global epidemic is on a downward path. But best case scenario is Greece is open for business July 1st, and we're working towards that. So we're preparing towards that. But of course, it involves airlines, because most people fly into Greece, and very strict but also enforceable protocols.
Can you put a figure on how big you think the economic loss might be, even in percentage terms?
I'd resist it, because it's going to be very different. Rather, I don't want to give you a big range, but it's going to be much worse if we don't open up at all for the summer.
You have to.
If we manage to get some tourists, it's going to be better. But it's around 10% seems to be a consensus amongst most European countries as what could happen, which is a massive contraction.
It's going to be a very different summer, isn't it?
It is going to be a very different summer, but we hope that the worst is behind us. And again, what I keep as a legacy of this crisis is this sense of collective success. And I dare to use the word pride. Greeks haven't been proud in a long time. For 10 years we were the punching bag of Europe.
Does this change the situation?
I think it has changed in terms of our self-confidence, and also confidence in the state. I'm not saying confidence in the government necessarily, but people trust the state. They trust the experts. The first thing I did was to give the floor to our top epidemiologist, and he's doing the daily briefings. It's not me.
There seems to be, dare I say, a very strong message for the United States and the United Kingdom, whose track records at the moment on this pandemic are probably some of the worst in terms of death and infection rates.
Well, everyone is doing it their own way. This is a way.
I know, but is there a right way? And does Greece have the right way?
Well, I think there is. I don't think there is a single right way, but I think we clearly did it, at least in terms of the first phase. Until now, I think we've done it the right way.
Okay. All right. So that was again.
John, in our last interview, we talked about how are tourists going to show up. And remember, I mentioned to you that the only way we could actually accept them is if they do a test before. And listen, he's just repeating.
He's listening to you. He must be listening to our interviews and reading your articles. So he should be taking you on board. I mean, one question, listening to what the Prime Minister of Greece said there, in terms of the contraction of the economy, these are big numbers. These are not insignificant figures, and these are, I mean, what support is there for the small and medium-sized businesses in Greece that are tourist focused for most of the year? I mean, has the government really stood up and provided that support to the how you guys call it, the micromeses eteries? Is that happening?
Well, we only have small and medium enterprise. 98% of our enterprise are small and medium. So really what I would like to explain to you is it depends who you talk to. The government has done everything possible to provide and to announce the provision of, 800 euro to people who have lost their jobs because of the legal lockdown. Okay, so no shop was open for 50 days, 45 days, right? So obviously you cannot shop, restaurants, coffee shops, and a lot of these people had stocked up right a week before the shutdown, like a few days before the shutdown. So they had to, all that inventory, which is fresh inventory, had to be thrown and tossed. So the question here is, what are we doing in terms of government policies? And the government has decided, as many other governments, to try to provide 800 euros. Mind you, 800 euros to existing taxable shops, shop holders, small and medium scale enterprises, and individuals who lost their jobs or have not really lost their jobs. They don't really make the earnings because the employment has been closed. There is, however, something very important to mention. Greece is its natural beauty, but Greece is its civilization. That's what keeps us being who we are. And today, as we speak, one of the most important sectors of the economy, which is a civilization, the artists, the musicians, the theatrical.
No one's working. They're all out of work. Oh, lost.
Yeah,
Sorry.
you hear me. So we have a series of impacts, if you may, that occur because of the lockdown is over, but we have continuous impact. So the government is doing, I mean, they haven't had to deal with something like that before, to open up, manual shelf number 2, page 64, paragraph 3. What do we do when COVID-19 hits you? There isn't such a thing. So they're looking, they're moving on, and they're learning as they're going, and they try to do their best. And frankly speaking, we're a small country. Rather, we're learning that in this specific crisis, it got managed very quickly, and it got a lot digitized very quickly. So.
I mean, listen, I can only give you the experiences here in the UK. We have this furlough scheme where employees who are, basically unable to work, their companies can claim 80% or whatever it is of their income. The Chancellor, Rishi Sunak, actually today said that that's not sustainable. They've had 6.3 million people applying for this scheme. The economy, I mean, that apparently it's the size of the NHS. The budget that has been allocated for it has exceeded, I don't know how many billions it's gone to now. So that's not sustainable. You are a small country. Your economy is significantly smaller than most of the big hitters in Europe. So that may be one of the things that saves Greece, actually. But here in the UK, I think we're sleepwalking into a bigger disaster. I think we've got much bigger problems ahead of us, because when they relax the measures, when they begin to reintroduce people back to work, I just read a report about the Imperial College have just made another projection that the second wave in Italy is going to be far more horrendous than the first wave. And I think that is what is particularly worrying here in the UK, is that they'll relax measures, people will start going back to work, and then we'll have this second wave that will be the game changer. So you guys in Greece have acted quickly. You've got it. It looks as though you've got it under control. And I think a lot of the other smaller, and with all due respect, smaller Central, Eastern, and Southern European countries have managed to keep it under control. But Germany, Spain, and the UK, I think, and France have really, it's totally engulfed everything. And it's
well, let me allow me to say something.
Cool.
If we review what has happened to all pandemics, including the Spanish flu, the West Nile, whatever that was, another type of pandemic, they come in waves of 3. The first one is a very tough one, but the second one is the worst.
Yeah.
And the fact that you read that from the Imperial College research talking about the UK, that doesn't mean that the second wave is not going to touch other countries.
Yeah, of course.
And this is, of course, one of the major concerns of our country as well. So we do, the last 10 years, we taxed people out of the wazoo. We got some billions of primary surplus, which are basically a consolidation of our savings. We got some additional money from reserves, if you wish, from all the bailouts that we had received.
Yeah.
But hey, we can't spend all this money right away, especially if we don't know if the union is going to give us any additional money to get rid of, the everyday problem of the economic crisis created because of the pandemic, not just to Greece, but to the rest of the European Union.
Do you think that the European Union has acted correctly to support the hardest hit countries? I mean, I read that the Dutch, for example, have been very, reluctant to support economies like Italy and Spain that have been hit hard by COVID-19. We spoke about the ECB being questioned by the German central bank about supporting this COVID-19 package and whether or not they should be buying bonds and supporting the debt relief on those issues. There's been questions in Germany. Do you think after this the Eurozone will be a weaker or a stronger economic union after this?
So since you started with the questions that were asked of me by CNN, I'm going to respond. There was a question like that. And there was a question about what is my point of view about the Corona Fund.
Yeah.
Or better said, the, all these processes of the European Union reacting. I think the European Union tends to always be reacting, never being proacting. Okay. Mm-hmm. So why would it change? It's a type of the beast, you can't, it's DNA. The second thing is, so no, it did not act on time. And don't forget, the head of the union, of the council, she actually was heroic and had enough of integrity to say that we reacted very late. We were not there when Italy wanted us and needed us. They're still questioning on how they're going to handle the provision of funding. Exactly. But I'm sorry, this is what we're dealing with. So in my question, there was a lot of the funding now is being asked to be given with conditionalities related to fiscal adjustment conditionalities, related to austerity conditionalities, and so on. And a lot of countries, including Holland, the Netherlands, and other surplus countries, don't feel the interest, the need, the whatever you want to call it, to help. They feel it's help to provide funding for the hardest hit pandemic countries, including Italy, without making the provision of funding into a loan and without having it attached to conditionalities related to austerity or fiscal adjustment. So my point of view is the following. When you're expecting a -2.5 global recession, do you think this global recession, John, is only going to touch Italy, Greece, Spain, and 2 other countries?
Well, we've seen Volkswagen's plants in Germany completely shut down. Car consumption has completely...
So 80% of production of Germany is sold abroad.
Yeah.
So it will also be equally affected. A huge amount of extroverted economic activity of Netherlands is also it's also trade related. It's also going to be affected. To which end, although the political making, the DNA, if you wish, of the rule-based European Union is going to push for an austerity-like help. a memorandum of understanding like help. In other words, we will give you the help with conditionalities attached, fiscal adjustment and other sorts.
Yeah.
Although these will be imposed, I believe so. And it will not only be imposed, it will be requested strongly. You saw it with what was discussed today in the Financial Times about the way the German central bank is reacting and is also sending to the court, questioning whether or not the ECB should QE or not. Okay, so there are going to be a lot of, it's going to start looking a little bit like Trump, the Republicans with the Democrats. But you know what? In the end of the day, the market will take care of it, because you may wish to have a memorandum of austerity to Italy and Greece and Spain and I don't know where else, but you won't be able to enforce it. And the reason you won't be able to enforce it is because everybody will be touched.
Absolutely. Elena, thank you very much for your contribution today. That was Elena Panaritis in Athens, Greece, a former World Bank economist. Please subscribe to the Gouventa channel. Send me your comments below. This will be our regular spot with Elena, who is very insightful. If you do want to find out about what she's doing, go to the Thought for Action website. I'll send the link down below as well. She's a globally recognized economist specializing in institutional economics and the big stuff. So it's the big stuff that Elena really is interested in. That's us for today. Speak to you soon.
Thank you.